Was Xenoblade Chronicles 3 DLC worth it? No, until it was. You see, there was 4 separate packs of DLC for Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and Wave 1 featured some Nopon coins that were very useful in the very beginning. Actually, even post-game it's useful. Don't forget to use those Nopon coins when you have the chance, which also featured some borderline cheating accessories in the early game that are still kind of useful in late game. And finally, the thing that matters most, alt skins, which if you were like me, an idiot, didn't realize that you can swap out pretty early on, but you had to find it in the menu section of your character, which at first I was a little bit overwhelmed. So it took a while to get to that option to change into them and actually make the most out of them. But once you start getting into the different classes, those costumes, you're not going to stick to one because you want to see all the variety of outfits that everyone gets to wear. Now, Wave 1 as a whole for the in-game product is very, very useful, especially in the beginning of the game. Hell, even towards the later half of the game, you're still going to be using some of this. I would say I would pay no more for this Wave 1 pack by itself, $199 for that. Just on the idea that this is really just a beginner's kit slash skins for your characters, which you may or may not use, especially in the early game where you're going to be swapping in and out of different classes, and you're not going to really stick to one type of skin at the very beginning. Now, moving on to Wave 2, which probably had the biggest sizable update up until that point, was definitely worth checking out. This wave featured the challenge battles, which were nice, but nothing to write home about really. They weren't as impressive as Xenoblade Chronicles 2, so we're going to try to not compare, but truthfully speaking, it wasn't a lot to really dig our teeth into, but it was something that kept us distracted that wasn't the base game itself. And the feature that most people were probably excited about with that silhouette was probably the new hero Ino and its side content. Now, Ino was definitely the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 fan service character. It had essentially the best moments in Ino's side quest where you get to challenge the big bad Nopon Eater and you hear that Xenoblade 2 battle theme play. Fantastic. Now, that being said, this was probably the most sizable update to the DLC. The first one of what would probably be the halfway mark of what we'd be expecting moving forward. Now, the price with this would vary, but I feel confidently that I would probably looking at essentially a side hero and a battle time attack, which I would value at about, if I had to give it a number, $4.99 for this. So $4.99 for Wave 2, which is probably something that may or may not change according to your experience, but from what I see, I would probably charge no more than probably $5. Again, this is USD money, $5 for that. Now, Wave 3 was a continuation of Wave 2 by adding a new challenge battle that really revamped the way you played Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Wave 3's battle challenges was more or less what I had in mind of what they would have probably done with this DLC. Really changed things up, really made it play in a different aspect that you wouldn't have thought of originally, but it really made things a little bit more engaging for you to play the way you used to, but keep in mind that this is a battle system they developed themselves to ensure that what you knew was not going to be exactly the same outcome of what you were playing before. So you know what you're doing, but they're going to swap it up in a way that you're just going to have to be thinking and second guessing yourself what's the best strategy, because this is a whole different system that I have to get used to. And of course, the DLC hero, which was a new hero called Masha the Lapidarist. And when I said that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 DLC had some stuff that we were hoping for, and it's hard, you don't want to compare. This right here was the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 fan service that we were wanting. She probably added the most lore, not only to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but probably to the context of Rex's lineage, of what he probably followed up with future generations, with adding his salvager code into his own moral code that everyone lived up to as the code of ethics that they all believed in. Now, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is exactly the kind of game that I want the most fan service of any kind. Rex's lineage, adding lore to Xenoblade Chronicles 3, explaining more of the different families and houses in the city. And don't forget, this is the one that gave you swimsuits, which your mileage may vary, but for those who appreciate it, they really did. It came with 2 of them too, which was really nice. That is probably the best wave out of all the waves, and since that was pretty much all the significant waves that were in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 DLC, I would kind of have to be comparing it to Wave 2, which was probably more or less the same. You know, for simplicity, I mean, Wave 2 had like the Ether Plus channels, which was not in the base game, so they had to add that in as well. But at the same time, they're more or less in tune with one another. So Wave 1, 2, and 3 were more the same, so I would probably say I would value that as the same as Wave 2 at $4.99. And in total, I would probably say I'd pay maybe 10 to 12 US dollars for this DLC, because you know, Wave 2 and 3 were pretty much the same, so kind of $5. I mean, let's say it was 7 at most, it'd still be like 14. And then Wave 1 was just skins essentially, which was, I don't know, maybe $1, so maybe 15, 16 bucks. So between 10 to $16 at most is what I would have pictured in my mind if this was all sold as individual packages. So for the price tag of $29.99, I don't think so, Monolith Soft. You're getting away with highway robbery at that point. At this point, you should be paying us to be playing this DLC, because that's a lot of money. Now, I don't know about you, but that seems like a lot. So, Nintendo, get your... Oh my god, I forgot. Wave 4. Okay, we're clearly, we messed up doing the math on this. There's 4 waves, not just 3. A whole new original story regarding the city founders and playable Rex and Shulk? Xenoverse lore dump? New and old characters from the base game? Confirmation on what happened to Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2 with Rex and Shulk? Xenoblade 1 fan service? Unlockable heroes to the main game? Further appreciation of what happens in the city? New super bosses? Fighting Elvis? A potential Xenosaga reference. Over 20 hours of content? I would pay $1 for that. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed gives us 20 to 40 hours of content that we were not exactly expecting, but we definitely are getting our money's worth. If this is what DLC looks like in the future, baby, grease me up and give me all of that, because this is the type of content I'm looking for. Stuff that fills me in from the base game and wanting more in the future and being more than satisfied at the present time, because this is exactly what I want in my Xenoblade games. All the fan service. This is the fan service I want. This is the stuff that I'm looking for. The developers are looking at us and saying, you know what? Here it is. This is what you came for. We're going to give you every cent of it. Now, that's a lot of story, a lot of gameplay. So how would I be able to price tag this? So generally speaking, for JRPGs, I like to look at it as for every 10 hours is about $10. So if you're looking at it in that perspective that I have in mind, that I've artificially just came up with, because that's about the average I spend my time playing JRPGs, I'd say about 20 to 40 hours. I'm currently at about 30 hours, not finished with everything, still playing it through and enjoying what it is. Might even consider doing a new game plus. But at this current time, 30 hours is where I'm at. So I would confidently just say $30 as is with the new story. But if it was going to be price range by, say, a company like Nintendo, it'd be like as a separate thing, $20 to $30, and that's more or less about the quarter of what the base game has to offer. Because this side content, it's kind of like a quarter of the main game. You're essentially just riding along like a single continent of the base game, and really it's a significant portion of the game. And add the fact that you're playing with Rex and Shulk, that's you can sell me on just that for any price range that you want. So I'd probably say, if it were, I would just gladly, if they said this game costs, just this portion of the game costs $40, I think I'd kind of be okay with that. I wouldn't really bat too much of an eye. I would clearly be wanting to know what it was I'd be paying at that price range. But I would probably say $40 is the most I would have ever paid for this, because they're talking about a quarter of the game, which let's just say is $25, and then the waves 1 through 3 is about maybe $15 at most that I would value it. So $40 is probably the most I would have paid. So knowing that it's $29.99, yeah, that is definitely worth the investment. But that's my opinion. Clearly, Nintendo priced it the way it was, and I'm more than happy. And I'm pretty sure most of you guys would probably be happy just paying for the story itself. Everything else is essentially extra. But for my money's worth, I definitely got more than enough, and I'm still enjoying it. And I'm hoping you guys are enjoying it too. So let me tell you, this was probably the best DLC, and it's kind of hard to put a value on that because I haven't had DLC like this that was as satisfying and fulfilling with the short amount of time that I got to play it. So let me know what you think. How much would you have paid for all the different waves? Wave 4 alone was obviously what we all waited for, but that is now the case that this is four pieces of DLC essentially. But they had to charge you all at once for it. Honestly, I was more than okay if we just got the story and that was it. But the fact that we actually got all these different waves, which, piece by piece was not very much worth it. But in the grand scheme of things, that was a lot of stuff that they did not have to offer. So Wave 4 definitely made it worth it. What do you think? Put it down in the comment sections below. I would like to hear from you guys and the Xenoverse, because I don't think this train is stopping, baby. Now, this was just Jalal, and I hope to check you out in the next one. Later.